we have a massive smoking gun, a press release ready to go about Epstein's death a day before he was found dead. You can help build the only independent news outlet, always on the ground with the people, for as low as 16 cents a day.
Corporate media, they've been lying to us for years, and you're going straight to the people.
Flint, Michigan.
Brooklyn, New York.
Government sending one more you to the residents of Chicago.
We need as many independent voices as possible, and that's why what you guys do is so important.
Covering what the corporate media covers up. Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. We have a major, massive smoking gun that seems to debunk once and for all the Jeffrey Epstein suicide, which I have been stating for at least a year or two is clearly not a suicide. Evidence has now come out from the Epstein files that the Trump administration, apparently its subsidiary in the Southern District of New York, had a press release ready to go about Epstein's death a day before he was found dead. This is a statement from Manhattan's U.S. attorney from the Southern District of New York, which is part of the Justice Department, dated August 9th. Only minor detail. He was dead, found dead the day after, on August 10th. Manhattan U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman said earlier this morning the Manhattan Correctional Center confirmed that Jeffrey Epstein, who faced charges brought by this office of engaging in the sex trafficking of minors, had been found unresponsive in his cell and pronounced dead shortly thereafter. Now, here is the actual statement that went out on the 10th by the same office. Notice a little difference. Manhattan U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman said earlier this morning, the Manhattan Correctional Center confirmed that Jeffrey Epstein, who faced charges brought by this office of engaging in the sex trafficking of minors, had been found unresponsive in his cell and was pronounced dead shortly thereafter of an apparent suicide. So here we have an apparent suicide was added, was not in the original pre-suicide statement that was at least drafted the day before. Am I in the twilight zone, or should this be leading every newscast in America? Should be all over the place. How do you explain this? Oopsies, we just got the date wrong. It gets even worse. Apparently, through the files, the prison, which I don't think would have done this on their own, you'd think they might have had a little coercing from government officials to fool the media, created like a fake Hearst with Jeffrey Epstein's like a fake body to fool the media and get the media off the scent as they pulled Epstein's real body out of the prison. We're with Epstein's body and had secured the scene. Redacted remained with correctional officers and until personnel from the Office of Chief Medical Examiner arrived to transport Epstein to their facility. Due to the large news media presence outside the Metropolitan Correctional Center, a male OCME official called and said he would be arriving at the loading deck with a black vehicle. In order to thwart the media, redacted, used boxes and sheets to create what appeared to be a human body, which was put into the white OCME vehicle, which the press followed, allowing the black vehicle to depart unnoticed with Epstein's body. Is this like a bad movie? This sounds like a movie, like a screwball comedy or something, although it's not funny at all. They created a fake Hearst with sheets over boxes to thwart the media. Why would you need to thwart the media if there was no issue? And before people get really conspiratorial, I'm not saying, Epstein's alive on some island. I know a lot of people think that. That's not what I'm saying. But they had a pre-death statement of his suicide, although that statement on August 9th didn't say suicide. Then they have a fake Hearst. And need I not remind you, I reported on this last week, apparently there was no actual noose found on Jeffrey Epstein after he supposedly hung himself from CBS News. Thomas told investigators, this is one of the prison correctional officers, Thomas told investigators he discovered Epstein in his cell shortly after 6:30 a.m. on August 10th and that he, quote, ripped Epstein down from the hanging position. Investigators asked what happened to the noose. I don't recall taking the noose off. I really don't, he replied. I don't recall taking the thing from around his neck. Noel, who remained standing in the cell entrance, that's another prison guard, told investigators she saw Thomas lower Epstein to the floor, but did not see a noose around his neck. The noose Epstein allegedly used has never been definitively identified, according to the Inspector General's report. A noose collected at the scene was later determined not to be the ligature used in Epstein's death. I don't know if I was collecting a dead body off from the ceiling. I'm pretty sure I'd remember if there was a noose around his neck. But the noose found at the scene, again, found at the scene, not taken off of his neck. What did he hang himself with, like a hanger, a coat hanger? Was not found to be the ligature that killed him. And need I remind you, sorry if folks are seeing this again, but for folks who haven't seen it, pretty important. I mean, one of the world's most renowned forensic pathologists, he had an HBO show, Dr. Michael Baden. It was called Autopsy. He was asked by the family to observe the autopsy. This is what he said about Epstein's death.
I was asked by the brother, the next of kin, to be at the autopsy. And at the autopsy on day one, there were findings that were unusual for suicidal hanging and more consistent with ligature homicidal strangulation, which included...
And it was suggested at the time that he committed suicide by doing what?
By hanging. At the time, he was found allegedly hanging by a homemade ligature of sheets.
Are you saying you don't think it was suicide?
I think that the evidence points toward homicide rather than suicide.
Why?
Because there are multiple 3 fractures in the hyoid bone, the thyroid cartilage, that are very unusual for suicide and more indicative of strangulation, homicidal strangulation.
More indicative of homicidal strangulation. And why does all this matter? I mean, Jeffrey Epstein was a deadbeat. I'm not talking about this in terms of mourning his death. He was a child predator. But clearly, as these files are coming out, and we don't have all the files, and a lot of the files have been heavily redacted, not to protect the women, to protect the other child predators who happen to be billionaires and some of the worst oligarchs in the world. But clearly, Epstein had a global blackmailing ring over some of the most powerful politicians, celebrities, financiers, athletes, you name it. So it's a long list of people who would want him harmed, all the way up to potentially the president of the United States, who, oh, by the way, Epstein's brother, Mark, gave a tip, submitted a tip to the FBI in 2023. He said, Jeffrey Epstein was murdered in his jail cell. I have reason to believe he was killed because he was about to name names. I believe President Trump authorized his murder. Now, I want to be clear. We're not at that point where we have evidence, but we now have evidence. The Southern District of New York, which is the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, represents the federal government. That is a prosecutor representing the federal government, i.e. the Department of Justice, at that time, the Trump's first administration. We have evidence that the Trump administration had a press statement ready to go before he died, before he was found suicided. His brother, Mark, says he thinks Trump might have ordered a hit. And by the way, Mark has testified previously. Jeffrey Epstein's brother said Epstein knew stuff about Trump that would require him to cancel the election. And if you read the actual testimony here, there's a lot of very strange, indiscernible notations also. Typically, the court reporter will make you repeat yourself to get a clean record. Wild stuff. Let me show you what he's talking about. Here's Mark Epstein testifying. Yeah, that's not cut. It's kind of indiscernible. And it's not, it's pretty standard sizes, I believe. And this would be discolored from the secretions of his neck. Thing I will also tell you is that in the 2016 election, my brother didn't tell me why indiscernible. What he told me is he said what he knew about indiscernible Trump because they would have to cancel the election. My brother is also indiscernible. He worked with Steve Bannon, who has 16 hours of videotape. I know this because my brother said he worked with him. And on that day, he said he stopped hanging out with Trump when he realized indiscernible. In the papers, they're reading he stopped hanging out with Trump and like he fell apart, indiscernible. It was bullshit. Everybody was like, he stopped hanging out with Trump when he realized Trump was a dick. That's exactly what he said. I can tell you from covering other court cases, those court reporters, they stop you a lot if they can't understand what you're saying. So I don't know why his testimony had so many indiscernibles, which means we can't ascertain what he said. Mark also said that he asked the Justice Department for missing videotape from Epstein's cell, and he was strung along and then told, we can't give it to you.
Now, I asked to get the footage from that same camera under Freedom of Information Act from 10 o'clock the night before until noon the following morning. That would show who locked up the tier, who were the last people on that tier. And in the morning, it would show, Michael Thomas going in the garden, finding the body, and it would show what the situation was when they removed the body from the tier. I was initially told I couldn't get that footage because it was still an open investigation. Okay, I understand that. But then when the investigation was over, I asked for that footage again, okay? And I was now told that the cameras that were operating don't show that area.
That's right.
I have this in writing from the Bureau of Prisons.
I think it's pretty damn relevant now that it seems clear this man didn't kill himself. As I've reported also, there was the prison psychologist who spoke with him a month before, weeks before. No evidence he was suicidal. Honestly, he was fairly arrogant, thinking and excited. He got his bail hearing coming up. He thought he was going to get out on bail by posting, the most amount of money in history for bail. New report indicates that his lawyers were beginning to explore potentially cooperating with prosecutors. Well, do we think possibly some people who might be the victims of that cooperation might have caught wind of that? It's not unheard of to kind of hire a hitman inside the prison to take out someone who could do damage. You've seen mob movies. And now we have the new shocking, scandalous information that, the Trump Office of Inspector General just left out of their report that there was an orange-looking figure found at 10:39 p.m. the night before Epstein's suicide.
A new analysis of surveillance video by CBS News shows a partial view of what may be someone possibly headed up to Epstein's cell tier the night he died. Notorious sex offender Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell in the early morning of August 10, 2019, inside this since-shuttered federal prison in Manhattan. And this was the vow of then Attorney General Bill Barr.
We will get to the bottom of what happened, and there will be accountability.
Epstein's death was quickly ruled a suicide, but a technical failure that left only one working camera near his cell that night has created conspiracy theories about what happened leading up to his death. At the time, the Attorney General said no one entered Epstein's housing tier the night of his death. But there's been scrutiny of a particular moment on the cell block surveillance footage where an orange-looking flash could be seen at 10:39 p.m. A report from the Justice Department Inspector General notes the flash, quote, "It is possible someone is carrying inmate linen or bedding up the stairs." And the final report refers to it as, quote, "an unidentified corrections officer." But now, newly released Justice Department documents reveal an initial FBI review of surveillance video on the cell block says the flash could possibly be an inmate. And independent video analysts consulted by CBS News say the movement was more consistent with an inmate or someone wearing an orange prison uniform than a corrections officer. And prison employees tell CBS News it would have been highly unusual to move an inmate at 10:39 p.m. Jeffrey Epstein was found dead at 6:30 a.m. the following morning. And last year, then Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino insisted.
There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
Clear as day. I don't know about you folks. Obviously, there's a whole lot of disaster, crisis, and lawlessness going on in this country right now. We are now on the ground for over 2 months. We're still there in Minneapolis covering this ICE terror campaign. So I'm not saying drop everything and only focus on this, but I would say this needs to move to the top of the list. We need to know what really happened, how this guy died, who killed him, who knew what when, and why they killed him, because it's directly linked to this entire cover-up. The victims deserve transparency, as do the American public. And frankly, Pam Bondi, Trump, all these people that have been involved deserve to be put on trial for obstruction of justice and more. Because the more that comes out, it's not only that it appears they might have been involved in his death, it appears there was a cover-up after that.